If you want to lose friends, talk about Brexit. Here in the UK, we're all sick and tired of Brexit. And those tuning in from America, I don't know whether you get a lot of this on your programmes, but it's obviously going to affect all of us, in a way, worldwide. But there's bigger issues at stake here that I think affect everybody, that affect Britain, affect America, affect Australia, New Zealand, and all sorts of English-speaking peoples, as well as the rest of the world. Because Brexit is... it's got some huge issues with it, which I'm going to talk about. But first, I want to talk also about what's happened. Some of the things that I predicted, and how I got to these conclusions. Because I started putting a few videos online back in 2014, and started talking about what would happen for 2015, and I got a lot right. For example, I talked about the Paris attack of the Je suis Charlie thing that happened in 2015, and got a lot of other things right then, such as the Tories going to win the election then. I also then for 2015 made predictions. I usually make my predictions, those of you who follow this, in around about September, so there's a long time ahead before the next year. I don't just make them when current events are happening. So I make my predictions when you don't know anything about what's about to happen. There's no... And one of the things I predicted, or particularly for 2016, that Brexit would happen, and everybody was thinking, there's no way it's going to happen. David Cameron went into Brexit thinking, nobody's ever going to vote for Brexit, they'd be mad to. And I said right at the start, I feel Brexit is going to happen. And I said Cameron will resign. And I said not only that, we're going to get a very strange president in America, and Donald Trump's going to be elected. And then I said some other things that were quite important at the time and had hit the headlines, of course, like the Nice attack, which I talked about. So all of this kind of all came at once, and the press got hold of it, and that's how I kind of got quite well known for making my predictions, particularly for those predictions at that time, and the Brexit one as well. And then I went on in 2017, I talked about the Ischia earthquake, which caught the news as well, because that happened exactly as I said it would. I said about the floods in Paris in 2017, talked about the divided America during that time, which happened immediately after Trump, the terrorist attack we would see in England, and what happened in Manchester, Tory wins in Scotland, which was another completely unexpected thing, and the advent and hacking from Russia. All of that was kind of predicted in those years, which was kind of, it kind of shook me a bit too, because I was doing it, and still do, really just as an experiment. I thought, let's see what I can do, see if I can pick up on those things. For 2018, remember, I predicted that Harry would marry Meghan. That happened. And I actually said, and Jane said this one as well, you remember, that Markle would become... Meghan, I said. Markle would become pregnant, and was pregnant as she walked down the aisle with Harry, so that happened too. And then I talked about the Hawaii fires and the German race riots. I talked about the French riots that we've got at the moment, and a Trump Tower fire. And all of that's kind of happened. So it all becomes kind of a bit eerie for me sometimes when I watch the news, because I kind of... You imagine you've made these predictions and you see them all unfolding. Now, I don't like to change predictions when I make them. So, once you've made a prediction, that's it, So it's almost like, I feel like sometimes as if someone else has made that prediction, it's not me, I watch it. And what seems to be happening with Brexit is exactly what I kind of said at the beginning. I said that we would get a hard Brexit. Now, they'll still say it's not on the cards. They say, we've got to have another vote, or we've got to have another referendum, or we've got to have another a general election, or we've got to have a choice between 4 or 5 different options, including Remain and so forth. But the way it seems to be going now, and I'm talking to you, what's the date today? It's the 14th of December. Okay, 14th of December 2018, I'm talking about this. And it does seem to be going the way I predicted, because I said also, right back, that when May got elected, I said that Theresa May would be threatened all the way through. And at the time, everybody was saying May's not going to last. She's not going to last. They were constantly saying she's going to be pulled out of power. And it's been that way. She's walked a tightrope all the way. And I said she would remain in power right up to the point where Brexit happens. So I may be wrong. Let's see if I am right or wrong. But I think she's going to stay in power right the way up until she does the Brexit deal. My feeling is that it's like she's got to do it one way or the other. She's made the decision, and that's it. So she's going to stick in there, and we've got no other option. Everybody thinks. Well, they're not thinking that now because they're trying to pull her down. So will she stick it out? Now, talking at this date, if you're watching the news, you'll know that I'm saying something that seems to be completely against the odds, because they're actually voting to try to pull her down as we speak. But I still think somehow she might stick it out right to the very last. So let's see if I'm wrong. I might be wrong. And always go and have a look at my website as well, because there I put all my predictions that I've made for the previous years, and I put what was right and also what was wrong, because I'm infallible, and all psychics are fallible, right? So we get things right and we get things wrong. We get in feelings and impressions, but often we get things kind of on the bigger picture right. So that's one of the first things. I think May's going to stick in there somehow. And I feel still we're going to get a hard Brexit. And my prediction was also that when this, as soon, they can't vote her out now because they've just had a vote to say she's got to stick with it for a year. I don't think she's going to stick with it for a year. They can't oust her within a year, they say. But I think she's going to be out immediately the Brexit deal happens, right? She's going to get a Brexit deal, which I think is going to be a no deal, right? And right at the very, very brink of things, right? It's a no deal Brexit. We go ahead for a no deal Brexit, and right at the very brink of things, we get a deal from Europe, right? Simultaneously, because Donald Trump sees the opportunity of trade, America kind of bails us out. So what I'm saying basically, and I think I've got this right, what I'm seeing here, is that we get a no-deal Brexit, and then a deal is struck with Europe at the last minute. It's as though they've got that Brexit option already worked out in their minds. Okay, we'll give them this, we'll give them that, we'll do this with trade, we'll do that with trade. So we go on world trade terms, but with a few extra caveats for the motor industry and the airline industry and the medical industry and this type of thing. They know what they're doing, don't they? All these people behind the scenes. It's like solicitors and attorneys when they go out and they're doing something in court. They decide the decision on the golf course and then they fight it out in court, And we've got this golf course mentality almost in the background. It's not that May or anyone plays golf, but they play it. They know what they're doing behind the scenes. So now, when I do these predictions, I have to be kind of neutral. I mustn't bring my own opinions into things, otherwise I see it ski-whiff. So whatever I think about Trump, or whatever I think about May, or whatever I think about Corbyn, whatever I think about any of the political leaders or what's happening in the news, I have to push that out of my mind and say exactly what I get, even if it sounds crackpot sometimes, because that's how you're going to get a clarity. But now I'm going to give a few opinions. Or a opinion, really, about this whole idea of what Brexit actually represents, because it's part of the whole idea of globalisation in many respects, of the way we want our future to be. Now, I speak a lot about the importance of entering the new age, the golden age. There's lots of different things about the idea of the yugas and things, but I subscribe a lot to the ideas of Swami Yukteswara, I can never pronounce his name, Yogananda's guru, who believed that the Kali Yuga is ending. A lot of the old texts say the Kali Yuga, the Iron Age that the Greeks called it, is going to continue for a longer time. But no, it's ended actually in the 17th century, and we're now moving gradually into the Golden Age. And as we do that, we go through lots of upsets. We have the First World War, the Second World War. I'm not going to say we're going to have a third, but we're going to have other troubles ahead as we move and the ages change. And gradually we shed the influence of the negative ages, the Golden Age. Well, it's not strictly the Golden Age. Dwapara Yuga is the age of electricity, the age of being able to get things like infinite power out the sun, or infinite power out of fusion and things like that, and also the gradual understanding of the power of the human energy, such as the prana. Okay, so that's the first of the auras, but I'm going to talk about all those ages again. I do lots through my talks. But so coming back to this idea of globalization, you see, I'm giving an opinion now. I feel that what we have is an assault on democracy, basically. If you think about it, my parents and grandparents and all of your grandparents and parents, and somehow all of them were tied up in the First and Second World Wars, which were all about fighting for democracy. And when we decided, whenever it was, I remember at school, to go into the common market, we had to have school debates, and I was the one that debated for going into the common market. And at that time, there was quite a strong anti-common market feel, that people were saying, we can't go into the common market because we're gonna upset New Zealand, and we went into the common market and dumped New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand went through some difficult times, and so did the what was the old British Empire. All those people we were still trading with were being pushed out now that we decided to commit ourselves to Europe, because at the time, and I felt this was the most democratic thing all of us could do, because by all clubbing together we have one big democracy that was as big as the American democracy, had that same number of people in it as the Indian democracy. So it was a good thing, because I felt it would help democracy completely. But now, when we look at what happens and we see the way they treat Britain, and they treat anybody else that wants to leave Europe, we see that not democracy. We see terrible things. We feel like we're part of an empire. So the way it's going is that we are becoming part of something that's so big that it squashes the individual. And I always think that big is bad, right? Because when it starts getting big, we get problems. We always get somebody dominate it. You get somebody grab the power. I mean, one good example of this at the moment is what's happened to the internet. Now, when the internet started, it was loads of fantastic communities. And those that might have sort of used to come to my website for the community, you might have found it was called Delphi Chat, or Delphi Psychic Chat, became our psychic family. It was like a fantastic community at the time. Put some comments if you were part of it, and those who were kicked out, please be nice. But we had all the problems you have with communities, as well as we had all the fantastic things, and we were talking about psychic stuff and giving free readings online. We were doing basically what spiritualism does, but put it on into the internet. Fantastic. My community was marvellous, and simultaneously, in my theme, there was communities sprouting up all over the place. Sometimes we're all rivals to each other because they were all trying to get each other's people and so forth. But there was hundreds of thousands of people that used to just come to my community, let alone to all to the others. And the forums that are out there, for the paranormal forums and the ghost forums and the spiritual forums and the yoga forums and all the rest of it. It was a decentralised internet. Anybody, an individual could set up with a great idea, and they used to say, build the content and they will come. And you build great content, offer great things, and people used to come to your website. You just made great stuff. And then gradually the big businesses started to step into the internet. And what happens? We end up with one search engine. We end up with just Google, right? All the other search engines were still there. You've got good search engines like DuckDuckGo with a silly name, but they're still pretty fair. But you basically, at the moment, if we look at the internet, we've got Amazon, we've got Facebook, we've got Google, and we've got a few other big names that dominate, not just a bit, the whole lot. The monopolies have taken over. So now the individual can't thrive. My website doesn't have those sort of hits anymore. Nobody's forums have those sort of hits. In fact, Google brought out this Google Plus thing at the time in order to stomp on all the forums. All the forums were being pushed off the internet, off the search results, saying, they're too thin content, get rid of that. Right? They didn't want to put forums on their search results, basically. They'd rather you went to Google Plus, which was their way of competing with Facebook. But I'm going on. But basically, what we have there is we see the situation when things get big and they're not they become centralized on a few individuals or few companies, we're in trouble. Same in a democracy. If we get an individual that runs it, you get a Hitler, you get a Stalin, you get a Mao, you're in trouble, because that one person's ideas dominate everything, right? So, I feel the way we want to think as spiritual people, and you may disagree, and please put your comments, we need to decentralize all around. Everything needs to be small is good, in my opinion, right? Doesn't mean we don't all work together. Like the internet worked fantastically when there was multiple people all working undominated by any one source that could either politically sway us, like they do, or financially sway us. Like the other day, I bought a pair of shoes, right? Now, everywhere I look, I'm seeing shoe adverts popping up on just about everything. I thought, what? It gets to the point you start laughing at it. Here we go again. Women's shoes, men's shoes, what, hiking shoes, but it worries me a great deal, because it means all that's being fed by a few big companies like the Facebooks of this world, who are making money out of it all the time. Decentralize. So that's my fear with what's happening with Europe. Everybody, like I started to say at the beginning, everybody fought for democracy in Europe, and we all thought that was a marvellous thing. But we don't have a democracy there. We have small-minded, accountant-side people who have become nothing but dictators, who have their own interest at heart. And I see people like Richard Branson, for example, talking about, it's going to ruin British business. Yeah, only because he's transporting people back and forth to Europe all the time and flogging holidays, and so what? It's only the big companies, those big conglomerates that have been dominating our world, that benefit from something like a European Union as in the form it is. It's corrupt, in my opinion. It's dominated by big companies, just as our internet has been stolen from us. I mean, I'm talking to you on YouTube, owned by Google. You can't get away from the big companies. We've got to break it down, I feel. Now, just to conclude, I've been reading a lot of works by Yogananda. That's why I mentioned earlier on. Fantastic person. He wrote the Autobiography of Yogi. Go and buy his book. It's marvellous. Buy my books too, of course, as well. My new one, God is Everywhere. You see advertised by the side here about my work with Sharavana Baba. But Yogananda said, and towards the end of his life, he made a number of predictions about the world and saw lots of things. It's worth looking into what he says. But one of the things he said that was quite important, and what Donald Waters, one of his followers, talked about, was that we would form small communities. Now, Yogananda's project didn't quite work with his small communities. It all became a bit monkish, and it didn't include the families weren't being able to join it. But he said that we would come to a point in the future where we have kind of small communities and we'd start to decentralize, and this would be the sign of a golden age coming to us. Now, I was part of that for a while when I was in the years and years ago, when the old hippie days, actually, because I used to actually have hair, and lots of it, and a beard, and in the old hippie days, I remember we got into the idea of having a farm. Me and my friends from school, we all said, let's get a farm together. Let's make a farm. We're going to have a farm. We're going to push our way from this society and have a farm. And we all pooled the money we earned and put it all into this one fund. Whatever you earn, rich or poor, you put it all into the one fund, right? And we all sat there and we all burnt our examination certificates together. We lit pound notes, which were quite a lot then, and then lit the examination. So we were burning money and examination papers, and we sold every single thing we owned and put it into the fund, right? So we didn't actually own anything. It sounds a bit crazy, and it was massively idealistic, really, wasn't it? And actually, it didn't work either, right? Which was a great shame, because our huge idealism, but we gave such commitment. And that, for me, was a major turning point on the way I looked at the world, to get rid of everything and burn your success as well, And so basically It didn't work, but what we did is I went and joined a kibbutz with my friends. We all went and joined a kibbutz and had the incredible life on the kibbutz for a year, and it was amazing. And we learnt how to live in what would be really a communist type of way of life, really, because it was a socialist kibbutz that we were on, Ashdod Yaakov, if anybody knows of it. It was a farming kibbutz. It's become part of the kibbutz called Yahud now. But it was a tremendous experience. But what I'm saying is that was kind of a model for me of what could happen in the world. Now, the kibbutz system also, in my opinion, doesn't work, because one of the problems with it is that people, the young, were leaving. Basically, even then, they were leaving because they wanted to get motorbikes, they wanted to go to the movies, they wanted to do all the things that naturally young people want to do. They don't want to be living what was a Jewish ideal. Now, I'm not Jewish, but I certainly learned to understand the Jewish consciousness while I was there. And also, I must say, also the Palestinian people, fantastic people. When you actually sit down and get to know them, and you see all this negativity on the news, you think, well, these are just lovely people, just like anybody else. You know, you can really take you as your friend. But anyway, that's another story. So basically, what I'm saying is, the world is going wrong, in my opinion, because we're letting the big boys dominate it all on a world scale. And I see the future of the world, the way we're going to come to a more golden age, is through what I've been saying. Decentralization. Just like the internet worked when it was decentralized, so I think societies will work when they're decentralized. So nations will work decentralized, and we will need perhaps some common things, like maybe a common world police force where only the United Nations, or the League of Nations as it used to be, would own the weapons, nobody else, you know. But then there's all sorts of potential damages, problems there. So, am I being idealistic with this? Am I saying things that are completely bonkers? Are these things ever possible? I mean, I think it can be possible if we have a very deep spiritual understanding. These things work when people have a spiritual bond. If we get that, we can get away from our materialism, then maybe a decentralized, a more sharing nature would work, you know? So what am I talking about? Am I talking about communism here? Am I talking about a form of democracy that perhaps could rely on a new way of doing things? Maybe not so money focused, maybe getting rid of capital, maybe getting rid of power. You know, there's a lot of big thoughts here. So yeah, please put your comments and have a say, and I'd be interested to see what others have to say about this. So there we go, there's an opinion today. I hope it don't affect the way I do my predictions in the future. So if you're new to the channel, please follow us, and don't forget, Jane, if you want to see myself and Jane, my wife, we are doing a number of demonstrations of mediumship in the new year in the south of England. So please, it's not that far from London where we're going to be in Bournemouth and Fareham, and yeah, come and see us, and you can see us live, and maybe we might even get a chance to sort of speak to some of you face to face. So that's all at my website at psychics.co.uk. Okay, catch you next time. Bye for now. Check out our website for more stuff. You can book psychic readings with us and find out about our public events, or watch our fantastic movie called Mystic Journey to India. It's a mind-boggling adventure that's now showing on Amazon Prime. And if you want to learn more, you can find out about my books and courses. Check out Messages from the Universe that reveals the ancient secrets of existence, or read my book called Psychic School to discover and enhance your own psychic skills. Or how about What to Do When You're Dead, my book about the afterlife and what it's like. All this plus lots more, lots of new articles and videos, all on my fascinating website.